if you could name those emotions that you identify.
Could you move the table to the other side of the board?
You don't see?
Yeah, she can see.
Okay.
It might be here. You can leave this one and.
Yeah. I'm just gonna move this here.
Okay, so let's start from deactivizing emotions. Which emotions did you think they would make people inactive? Fear. Okay, fear.
Hopelessness.
Yes, I was how. Okay.
Don't worry.
Hi. Fear. Fear, shame. It's what? Yeah.
Okay. Oh no, yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, shame should be on the other side? That's okay. That's all right. But some would say shame here as well. Okay. That yeah. You are saying okay. Good. We've got shame here as well. Okay.
What do you mean by activating? Because some activate in a longer run, some, but they did activate in the short run just because they put on hormones that bring this.
That it's good. Okay, so give an example of an emotion that would have those two functions. Fear.
It can mobilize, you can paralyze, and it can mobilize.
Okay, so we put fear as well here on the mobilization. Okay, anything else?
Avoidance of responsibility as something that deactivates.
Okay, avoidance of responsibility. Okay.
And hopelessness also comes in the
Okay, hopelessness. Deactivation? Deactivation? Hopelessness. Apathy. Resignation. Right, passivity. Hi.
avoidance of responsibility.
We have that. Uncertainty. We have that. Apathy. Okay. Okay. Doubt. Distrust. Okay. Good. Let's then talk about the activizing emotions.
Empathy.
Empathy. It's with A.
Adventure also. Confidence.
Pride and heroism.
Compassion. Solidarity. And hope. Selflessness. Solidarity. Okay, what about the hopelessness? Hopelessness? Did someone say that? Yeah. Okay, hopelessness.
Hopelessness.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopelessness. All right. Okay. So, actually, the purpose of this exercise is, among other things, to see that some of the emotions that we may think as either activizing or deactivizing, they could be in both sides. And those who would think that hopelessness is activizing emotion, how hopelessness may activize.
If you're hopeless, then the firefighters would arrive.
Just a second. Yes, Lily.
Yeah, sometimes when a person sees no other way out, sees that there is nothing else to do, they act. This is the case, we have had lots of resistance cases in Armenia when people just struggled because of being hopeless. There was no other way out. Yeah.
But there is a difference between there is no way out, there is no other way out, and there is no way out. Because real hopelessness is like, it's not formulated in there is no other way out, but the real hopelessness is there's no way out.
Okay, so maybe when a person is in a desperate situation, it presupposes some action. Maybe
So
I
that's
use
more
the-
desperation. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not hopelessness, but
Yeah.
desperation. Yeah, it's a bit different.
Sorry,
Yeah, yeah.
the hopelessness, like the case in Tunisia, the guy that burns himself.
Right. Uh-huh.
Yeah, but yeah.
Now, again, what about shame? That they are, this both the activizing and activizing. Hi, Andri.
I just read a study about shame and guilt that on the short run, hormonally, it really deactivates you. And the long run, it can be a motivator. But you, in the situations like with fire, feeling guilt and shame will not basically drive you there.
Right.
Expectation of feeling guilt that you wouldn't do that, it might work. But it's like a difference between pleasure, expectation of pleasure, dopamine and endorphin. That's different. So on the short
And
run,
oxytocin, don't forget.
it's more of a deactivation in the short
I
run.
think
I-
shame could be activating when you challenge yourself or you challenge the society that
Uh-huh.
made shame on you or made you guilty. So you challenge them.
All right.
The way we are answering now is, to me, it's like we are not relating to the scenario that it was given there. It was like, it's now like we are referring to other incidents or other happenings, not to the one that you have given us here. So I don't think we are doing justice to what you have asked.
Well, but in terms of shame, one could be can certainly activize you because you feel shame that no one else did that and people would burn, so you run to the building and act. Right? But and actually, Václav Havel was when he was kind of trying to explain why people rebel or resist. He was writing about humiliation. He was writing about the negative emotion that, in theory, should deactivize people. That humiliation is something that should deactivize you. But he says that because people feel humiliated, why they feel humiliated, they have also longing for dignity, with the feeling of humiliation. So, interestingly enough, instead of completely deactivizing people, the feeling of humiliation made them resist. And this was the kind of the connection between deactivizing and activizing for him emotion.
The reason for that is that there is a difference between humility and humiliation. So humiliation is some sort of forced humility. So it's like interesting that there are two words there, humility and humiliation. And so that's why, because it's forced humility against our own wish, this is why kind of humiliation backfires.
Yeah,
To say.
exactly.
What about joy? Because if you are very joyful, it may deactivize.
Yeah. It's in this. If we wanted to be, if we wanted to come back to this scenario, I would probably don't see joy but excitement. I mean, there might be some people who are adrenaline junkies, and it was like, fire is there. I am first there in the fire actually because I like the risk. I like the, what's going on. And there are some people like this. And they are those kind of single soul activists that are trying to motivate others, but in the hopeless situation, where they really face alone the repressive government. It's not. I mean, they are on one hand enthusiasts, but they are also the guys that probably they have least to lose at this moment. If they are like long-term activists, they've been in prison, they were prosecuted, their phones are already tapped, and their families are intimidated. They really don't have much to lose by the time of the long-term resistance. So that's why they continue to be at the front. But at the same time, they might be it's not that it's kind of so joyful for them to resist the repression, but certainly there is this level of excitement about that.
Fear. I think fear also crosses both sides. Yeah, because fear, rather than just being a paralyzing, inactive emotion, can also be the reason why most people do things. It's like deeply religious people or people that have a different social construct. Like in this scenario, someone is there, you feel, well, But if I don't do this, that's I don't. It's different from guilt, but it's a fear of a consequence. He feels the consequence is directly related to him. So I think fear also crosses the chart.
Right, which is interesting because what you are saying is that the fear actually reduces avoidance of responsibility.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I'm fearful about my children, this may actually force me to act because I'm actually becoming responsible for the kind of future of generation, what I will leave to that future generation if I don't act. So I'm fearful about how my son or daughter will be living, or their children, if I don't struggle right now myself. Philip.
I feel this exercise would be a bit incomplete if we didn't share a bit of the conversation we had over here, in that
A little skeptical out there.
yeah. Want to have a go at it? Well, basically, the whole point of FSI is that skill about civil resistance is more important than conditions. And in the same way, Erica was sharing that according to research, the single most important element that will lead someone to go up the stairs or do nothing, try to save somebody or not, is skills. If you've been trained as a firefighter, with first aid, and all these things. So although feelings like that may matter, what matters most in real life is if you know what to do, you're going to go. And there was an article in my paper, local paper last week, and I'm sure you've seen those, middle heroic of heroism. He jumped in the water to save someone, and the thing is, he was an ambulance worker. And he said, I'm not a hero, I just did what I had to do. And I guess in that sense, the skill thing is so important.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to say that people don't run in, kind of improvise and spontaneous. It's just that it's pretty random which of us would do that if we didn't have prior training.
Right.
I might run in today and not tomorrow for pretty random reasons that were subconscious. But if I had training in how to save somebody in a burning building, chances are my training would just kick in and I would just be doing it.
And that's a great segue to our last question, which is about what skills you would need to use effectively in order to make transition from deactivizing emotions towards activizing ones. So what kind of strategies one would think about when you build the movement to actually reduce the fear, the negative fear, or deactivizing fear, perhaps in order to stimulate activizing fear. And similar, what kind of strategies, and through the strategies also, I'm implying skills and also tactics, one would need to deploy in order to, from the kind of deactivizing shame, we would have activizing shame. So can we then focus on the strategies? I mean, can we come back to what we really are about, why we talk about emotions? I think they are both quite related.
And this same burning building.
No, we can go beyond that, of course. Okay, Anna.
I think first of all you have to recognize these emotions. So recognition of deactivizing emotions is the first step. I don't know, and then we'll see after that. But the recognition that this is really the obstacle to our actions or obstacle to better lives or whatever it is. And then deciding altogether what to do to actually get rid of that obstacle, which means to transfer or transition to another field.
Okay, someone that I haven't yet heard, Karina.
For me, what I've seen so often is how essential it is the idea of an identity within activists, and how activists build identities around being a leader, or around having certain skills, and a pride in that identity. And for example, activists who might not even have the skills, all of the skills that they need, but once they have that identity of being an activist and being a leader, will go into a situation with much more leadership and enthusiasm and maybe bravery or courage, then
Okay, so kind of build leadership skills, develop the leadership.
around
Leadership, effective leadership. Okay. Who else? Amir?
I think I should say about the activism, like audacity. Like if I look onto the active like for human rights activists or whoever working in my country, if they don't have the audacity to speak, for example, cases of enforced disappearances in my country, like hundreds of people are there, but only few got the audacity to speak in front of public or in front of media or something like this. So it can also be, I think we can also bring it on
Activizing. Yes. So that's that might be audacity would be opposite of fear. But in terms of, again, coming back to this to the question about the skills and strategies that we could use to kind of shift from deactivizing negative emotions to activizing ones. Yes, Maya.
I'm going to say something that might sound really bad, but you have
Go ahead.
You have to have some like brainwashing skills. Like if you want to make people go from not acting to like acting, like you need to know how to approach them and make them change that feeling. And
okay.
Not inspiring.
Okay, inspiring.
In positive way. Educating in positive way.
Okay, so we've got Daniel, Ahmed, Aya, Andri, Mohammed, and Harold. Okay, 6 from this side. Okay, go ahead.
I would promote. I would link it to what she said about identity, but I would promote it as group identity to make people feel like you are not alone in this. Like our problems are common, and if we act together, then they're not just the sum of individual problems, but it becomes a group, like a united effort. And sometimes that's what it takes to make people act.
Okay.
And feel they're not alone.
Great. We just need 30 seconds from each of you. Okay, who was the next? Ahmed and then Aya?
I would share the burden of what Maria said, just some of it about brainwashing skills. Actually, I kind of thought the same thing before, but then I read an essay by Jacques Duval, who was one of your colleagues, I believe, and I was struck by an idea that yes, it takes communication skills to communicate, simple concepts to large groups of people, but these communication skills don't need to be brainwashing. Actually, it's pretty counterproductive, because if you distort reality, at some point it will backfire, because people will not be interested anymore in whatever you're defending. So instead of brainwashing, I would frame that differently, just synthesizing a large set of demands into clear-cut sentences, like short slogans that can resonate in the mind of most people.
Great.
That would not be brainwashing. It would be more honest, but still the same logic.
So essentially, and making the demands more concrete.
Yes. No, more articulate,
Okay.
shorter, and more slogan-like.
Okay.
I needed to articulate my idea better.
Aya?
It's catchy.
I would add to what Ahmed said and say giving an incentive to each one belonging to the group. So, for example, the hopeless, give them hope. The uncertain, give them facts. And make everybody has an incentive to be part of that group. And back to your idea of the identity, I think belonging to that group and believing what is your vision.
Great. Andri? Yes.
I like this feeling of ownership part. It's really important to win back responsibility, because if you own this, I remember just coming back from States 4 days before Euromaidan, and when everything started, I was thinking, well, why should I leave the country, not they? Who are groups who, well, I want to stay as long as I can. That's one part. And another part of it, I remember from work, there is a Belarusian singer, Mikhalok, and he has told that his son that if we will not struggle now, it will be like Armageddon. So there is uncertainty of whether we're gonna win. But there is certainly, if you don't struggle, that you're gonna lose and lose badly, and will face grave consequences. If you perhaps build a certain negative outcome in the absence of struggle, it mobilizes.
Okay, great. Mohammed and Harold, and that would be all guys, because we'll cut into your break. We already are cutting into your break.
I would say information and historic perspective. Information in the sense that, you have to tell them that this is your rights. That is there. You have to let them key in that this actually, you have the rights to it. Then the historic perspective is like, you tell them where it has worked. That this worked here, people stood for their rights, this is how they did that.
I mean, I'm kind of partly historian, and I can appreciate that argument. I think that, for example, in Syria, Syrians knew about massacre in Homs in 1982, but they didn't remember really a great historical period of 1936, when they actually, through nonviolent resistance, the longest strike in history, they challenged the French mandate system, and they won independence through nonviolent actions. That wasn't really remembered and appreciated, I think. Harold.
Okay, this is like an amalgamation of what several people have said, but you gave the example.
Louder.
You gave the example just now. You showed us Vladimir Putin with the ribbon on his mouth. I think that to deactivate fear and change it into an activating emotion, perhaps you have to apply calculated irreverence. When you demystify
calculated
irreverence, when you demystify the leaders, the oppressors, you bring them to the level of the oppressed, and it makes them easy. It makes it easier for you to address them on that high level.
Great. And humor. Right. So, okay, guys, that was great. We are still kind of at the beginning of the lot of sessions that would be touching on the issue of resistance, how people resist, why they resist. So we'll be using what you just brainstormed with us here in the sessions to come. So thank you for the participation, and we'll see you like in 15 minutes back here at 4. So grab coffee and get some sugar into your blood, and let's be back here. Thank you.
Everybody, please be back in 15 minutes because we have a heavy schedule. Thank you. 15 minutes.